everyone, and welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my assessment cycle project. This semester, I've been designing an assessment project to examine peer learning opportunities within higher ed, and more specifically within the School of Communication Sciences and Disorders where I work. This presentation is going to be broken up into three key parts of my assessment project. First, I'm going to share with you my findings from existing literature regarding peer mentoring. Then I'll discuss the assessment itself. I'm going to start by sharing my initial assessment design, sharing with you all how that's changed through the assessment process, and the qualitative data I gathered during my student interviews. Finally, I will discuss my assessment findings and the implications I believe they have for peer mentoring programs available within this department. So I'd like to begin by providing a quick overview of what the existing literature says about peer mentoring.
The concept of mentoring itself goes way back in time. It dates back to ancient Greek mythology, as well as ancient Egyptian political practices. The approach that you'll see portrayed in historic texts and that you're probably most familiar with involves a flow of knowledge from a keeper of knowledge, who is typically someone older and more experienced, to a seeker of knowledge, a younger, less experienced protege. You might think of the relationship between a professor and their students, or maybe you've participated in tutoring or academic support programs. Those would also be a good example. Some scholars argue against this approach to mentorship because there is an inherent power imbalance at play. Instead, these people argue that mentoring should be transformational in nature. It should be a space that encourages collaboration, discourse, and dialogue. And then rather than accepting knowledge from one source, transformative mentoring seeks to allow participants to challenge their own assumptions, grow in critical thinking, and come to conclusions alongside their mentors. Regardless of what approach you prefer, peer tutoring has been shown to have a lot of different benefits and very few drawbacks. It's beneficial to universities and academic departments because it's cost effective. It increases retention rates and graduation rates, and it encourages students to get involved with their university. It also gives students an opportunity to find community in their academic cohorts, raise their GPA, reduce stress and anxiety, and has also been shown to increase access to professional and career development opportunities. As scholars discuss the benefits of peer mentoring, they also provide helpful recommendations for how to improve upon those existing opportunities and to provide students the support they need for academic and social success. Some of these recommendations include introducing more programming that promotes student resilience and growth mindsets, implementing formalized mentor selection criteria and purposeful mentor-mentee pairings, and establishing several types of mentorship for students throughout their degree course. With previous literature in mind, let's move on to the assessment design itself. The initial goal of my assessment was to examine the efficacy of existing peer mentorship opportunities utilizing a mixed method approach. I planned to survey a sample of students who participated in peer mentoring opportunities, and I also wanted to compare their GPAs with students who chose not to participate in these. I really quickly realized that this method was just not practical due to time constraints, data collection, and issues around communication. After realizing this population of students who actually participate in our peer mentoring opportunities was so much smaller than I thought it was, and also realizing that the program is a lot less formal than I first believed, I needed to pivot my approach to assessment. So rather than examine the efficacy of peer mentoring, I shifted and sought to examine students' perceptions of peer mentoring. I also looked at, what even is out there for students to take part in. So with this approach, I took a qualitative approach and had the opportunity to interview 3 students within the AUD program. These were really minimally structured interviews. I wanted students to be able to freely describe their experiences. I did give them the initial survey that I had wanted to issue in my original design, but just to guide their discussion if they needed it. So we relied on it very minimally. So this slide goes over some of the key takeaways from each student interview. You'll see also that student names were replaced with pseudonyms just to protect their privacy as much as possible. All three of my students were from AUD programs within the University of Memphis School of Communication Sciences and Disorders, and had participated in departmental peer mentoring in some way or another. So 2 students, pink and green, were students who were mentored, and our student in the middle in blue was actually a mentor herself. All 3 students entered into peer mentoring through different routes, despite being mentoring for the same department and degree path. Our first student in pink signed up on a paper during a school-related conference. Our middle student was asked to mentor a struggling student by the professor that she GA'd for. And our third green student sought out mentoring on her own. She actually started with the general on-campus peer tutoring, and when that didn't meet her needs, asked her professor for a recommendation of an upperclassman who may be willing to mentor. And since then, she's met with 2 different upperclassmen and has had a pretty good experience with that. These students have all also had vastly different expectations and experience with peer mentoring opportunities. Our pink student described her reason for joining as why not. She also had to wait a significant amount of time over an entire semester with minimal back and forth communication before she was ever paired with a mentor. However, she did get paired with a mentor who was a good match for her academic interests and who was an alum of the program who had graduated 3 to 4 years prior. Our second student, like I mentioned before, was paired with a student who was struggling, and she was paired with her because she was a professor's GA, and she had a lot of experience mentoring previously, both in undergraduate degree path and in high school. She does say that she and her mentee got along okay, but ultimately they had a really weak social link and were probably not a great match for each other. Finally, my third student chose her own mentors based on advice from her current professors and from other students. She took a really active role in the process of finding a mentor and was seeking to manage organization and academics in grad school. Because their experiences were so different, the students got a lot of different benefits out of the process of peer mentoring, but I do think it's worth it to note that the benefits are congruent with the current literature on peer mentoring. Student 1 experienced primarily social benefits. She and her mentor formed a friendship, they still talk, and her mentor primarily serves as a sympathetic ear when it comes to things like coping and overcoming the difficult parts of grad school. So one thing she cited was that her mentor helps her overcome challenges when she receives really harsh feedback on her work, and also that her mentor is maybe the only person in her entire degree path who congratulates her on her work and her thinking, and not on her work and her thinking in combination with her disability status. So that was an important part of their social relationship. Her mentor also provides career insights as someone who's actively practicing in the field she wants to join someday. Student 2, our mentor, notes benefits such as professional development and engagement. She already enjoyed the process of mentoring, and this experience helped her solidify the idea that she'd like to take students on in the future. And finally, our third student cited academic and organizational benefits, as well as an increase in self-awareness and self-confidence, which was something that was important for her as someone who got an adult ADHD diagnosis. Collaborating with another student in the way she did with her mentor allowed her to regularly clarify course concepts, schedule assignments and study sessions, and track shared goals and expectations. She did note a significant increase in her exam grades post-participation. She said she couldn't remember explicitly what they were, but she believes she jumped up from a C to an A. So what were my takeaways from these interviews? First, it's clear to me that peer mentoring is something that's a desired resource. Students are seeking out these opportunities and take full advantage of them when they're available. I also found that peer mentoring is something directly beneficial. Students benefited in ways such as socially, organizationally, academically, and those are in line with existing literature. Peer mentoring is available. Students who need peer mentoring or who seek it out are able to find it within the School of Communication Sciences and Disorders. Peer mentoring within the School of Communication Sciences and Disorders is desired, beneficial, and available, but it's not perfect. So throughout this assessment project, I was able to identify no more than 4 or 5 students who had actually taken part in these opportunities. And students who did and who spoke with me noticed areas that they think could be improved. 2 major areas for improvement are formal peer mentoring opportunities. So currently those opportunities are offered on a person-by-person basis. And as you saw in the previous slides, those experiences vary quite a lot between what they're benefiting from and what they're actually doing with their mentors. So students entered into it for different reasons and through different routes. So students stated to me directly that they'd like to see opportunities that are that include more faculty involvement and support, some more mentor training, organization, and even advertisement of opportunities, which kind of leads us to our next point, which is that there is a need for increased communication regarding peer mentoring. To enter into the mentorship relationship, students had to seek them out on their own and be persistent about their participation. As far as I know, and as far as I was able to find, there are no systems in place to ensure that mentor-mentee relationships persist after first contact. Even those mentees who identified strong social links with their mentors say that their relationships have weakened over time. And those who do not form strong relationships, such as our blue student, our mentor student, really said she struggled with a game of telephone, constantly having to reschedule meetings and failing in keeping consistent communication. She was always falling in and out of touch with her mentor and mentee. So what can we do about this in our program? I think that there is a potential to formalize peer mentoring through a few different things. We can consider creating departmental peer mentoring programs rather than person-to-person or course-to-course availability. We should probably think about building in mentor training rather than just trusting mentors to know how to do it themselves. And we can pass those mentorship roles down to students as they progress through the program. We need to pair mentors and mentees based on their areas of expertise and academic or career interests. And we need to continue assessment aimed at expanding and improving peer mentoring opportunities. And to increase communication, we should increase advertisement surrounding peer mentoring. So use TV ads in our lobby, advertise it on our website, create teams for our cohorts that we're putting this information out in, etc. We need to respond in a timely manner to student interests in peer mentoring and or offer intervention directly to students who are struggling. We should look into ways to incentivize communication between mentors and mentees. For example, maybe there's an amount of bonus points available to students contingent upon how many meetings they've had with their mentor or mentee. And finally, I think we should implement quarterly check-ins with faculty, advisor, and admin to track progress and to continue assessment on this. These slides, you'll find my references in the literature I reviewed for this project. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a good end of the semester and leave me any questions in the discussion. Have a good one.